Hello, this is Jonathan Menard, and welcome to Counter-Strike 1.6, The Secrets and Tips. We're going to be talking about things that will improve your individual skill. Now, that doesn't mean what we're going to say in this video can't be used in a team setting, but it does mean we're not going to be talking about the buy system and team chemistry, because that's more of another video. The information that I'm about to present to you is about 7 to 8 years of Counter-Strike playing, as well as watching a lot of demos from the world-class players. Before we get into this, I'd just like to say that I have no sponsors of any kind, so any product that I'm going to recommend is a genuine opinion. Aiming in Counter-Strike is a very important aspect. It is a shooter after all, right? You aim and you shoot. So it's important that you have an optical mouse that is very comfortable for you. I have a Microsoft Explorer 3 here, but that doesn't mean that's the mouse for you. You might prefer the MX500 series, the MX300 series from Logitech, or the G5 or the G3, or you might prefer other Microsoft selections such as the 5-button mouse and the 3-button mouse. As well, Razer also has some popular high-end mice that I've just never played with. Now, mouse sensitivity is a subjective thing to talk about with Counter-Strike players, but you're going to find that most world-class players have about the same sensitivity, being about 1 swipe per 180-degree turn. Now that means that they also don't have mouse acceleration. What is mouse acceleration, you might be asking? Mouse acceleration is best illustrated by an example. For example, if I did a slow swipe or a quick swipe without mouse acceleration, that would always be the same distance traveled on screen, about 180-degree turns. But with mouse acceleration, that distance will be different depending on how quickly or slowly I do that. So one swipe slowly with mouse acceleration might be a 180-degree turn, but a quick one might be 360 degrees. That might not sound like a big deal, but in high-pressure situations where players frequently aim quicker and do things at different speeds, that's going to muck around with your aim, and you really don't want that happening. And one last thing before we leave the subject of aiming, it's important that you play as many aim maps and deathmatch servers as possible. Recoil. Now, I can't generalize about how to shoot every gun. Every gun in Counter-Strike 1.6 has their own quirk, their own something that makes the game so beautiful. One of the things though that I can tell you that might be a bit shocking, your frame rate directly affects your recoil. That's right. If you have a low frame rate, you're going to have a lot of recoil, versus if you had 100 frames per second. Now, this isn't a PC guide, but I'm going to show you some commands that will improve your frame rate as well as your netcode. And if you still have frame rate issues and you've turned off vertical sync, then you probably need to format, and if that doesn't work, you're going to need to upgrade or get another computer.
Alright, so I have 4 commands here that are absolutely must. The first one is rate 2500, and what that does is it sets the overall netcode bandwidth cap. The next one, CL_CMD rate 70, limits the outbound packets. And if you don't understand any of this, don't worry, just put it in your console and it's going to help you. And the next one, CL_update rate 70, is the outbound packets, how many outbound packets you're actually sending. And by uncapping those to 70, which is pretty much virtually uncapped, you're actually improving your recoil in some way. Now the last one isn't netcode, it's FPS_max 101. And what this does is it basically uncaps your frame rate from 72 to 100 if your computer's up to it. Now if you're still stuck at 60, as I said previously, you're going to want to turn off your VSync. And to do that, you can go on your desktop and find your way to the advanced video settings, and it's an OpenGL game, and you would disable the VSync or vertical sync. The M4, or the Colt as some people call it, is easier to spray with in comparison to most of the rifles in the game. At long range, you're going to want to stick to 2 or 3 shots per burst, for the reason that you're not going to be able to take somebody down in one headshot if they have full armor. The AK-47 is in the same ballpark as the M4. It's a bit more powerful in that if you shoot somebody in the head, they're instantly down no matter what, at the exception of a few extreme long-range situations. However, when it comes to spraying the AK-47, it's a bit trickier. The only way to really control your spray on the AK-47 is to pull straight down. Now this might be tricky to do, but if you practice quite a bit, and if you do it perfectly, you really can control your AK-47 spray. The MP5 is one of the only guns that you're able to run around and shoot with and only lose a bit of accuracy. You should always spray this gun, but remember this: if you shoot at long range, you're going to lose a considerable amount of damage. So, you probably want to keep this more mid-range, short-range. The FAMAS is an excellent gun, and if you're confident about landing your headshots, the burst mode is highly recommended, as it can quickly take someone down in as little as one burst, and the bursts are very accurate, especially when you're crouched. The Galil is a decent gun that plays like somewhat of a hybrid between the MP5 and the AK-47. It has more power than the MP5, but less power than the AK-47. Crouching for long-range shots is a must. Before we get on to the pistols, we're going to talk about the AWP. Most of you know that if you hit someone in the chest with an AWP, they're immediately going to be downed, no matter what. There's also a technique called quickscoping, which is a technique that requires an extremely good server with low ping. Quickscoping is when you zoom in and shoot before the scope even comes up, but with 100% accuracy in the middle of your screen, where your crosshair would be. It's also very important to master movement, but we're going to talk about that after the pistols. The Desert Eagle, or the Deagle as most players call it, is far more powerful than the price would suggest. Going for headshots is a little tricky with the Deagle, but you gotta keep in mind that you have to shoot a bit below the center of the crosshair. And also keep in mind that the Desert Eagle isn't 100% accurate, so there is a bit of luck involved. But you can remove a bit of that by crouching to give you a bit of an accuracy boost, especially at long range. The USP isn't as powerful as the Desert Eagle, but does have a bit more ammunition in it. The USP is a bit more important than almost every other gun to go for the headshots right away, then maybe go for a chest shot to finish them off. The reason being that, if the enemy has any kind of armor, you're going to be shooting for quite a while to take them down, so even a Glock could take you down. The decision between crouching and standing is a bit more of your decision. It's not terribly inaccurate when you stand, but it is a bit more accurate when you crouch. The Glock, just like the MP5, does very little damage long range, so it's important to get close up. Some players burst, some players use the semi-automatic mode, some players switch between burst and semi-automatic. The Glock also has what has been termed great stopping power, as victims getting hit can barely move.